This is not a sync box, and I have to keep reminding myself that because it has moments when I can hardly tell them apart. What you're actually looking at here is the successor of the king of plug-and-play immersion, and it's wild to look back at how far Govee's TV backlight has come since 2018. That's 7 years ago when Govee exploded onto the smart lighting scene with the industry's first camera-based TV backlight. That launch was instrumental and a significant turning point for immersive TV lighting because it opened the market to a wider audience with its simplicity and reliability by eliminating any hardware and software limitations or restrictions, such as the need for external video source equipment in order for the sync technology to function as intended. Since then, Govee's TV camera kit has gone through multiple transformations from the original T1 backlight to the T2 Pro, the T3 Lite, and finally, a product emerges from the ashes as the all-new designated chosen one, dubbed the T3 Pro. However, while familiar in name, the T3 Pro comes equipped with new hardware, including triple HDR lenses for the cameras, an upgraded backlight, as well as an AI performance-driven element that completely caught me by surprise. And when all the pieces come together, it legitimately challenges their very own 2.1 sync box, which an external-based system like the T3 Pro has no business doing. For this video, we're going to dive in on exactly what makes this new flagship TV light kit special, including but not limited to a deep dive on the specs, setup and recommended settings, features and highlights, and even direct comparisons against the entire family of Govee TV light kits. So the T3 Pro says, "I'll raise you one," following the T2 Pro dual camera system, and it now features 3 1080p HDR high precision cameras. And what this means is that each camera is fine-tuned to properly handle HDR specific content, so the lenses are far less susceptible to overexposure. Overexposure of a camera lens can occur when the camera sensor becomes overwhelmed by extreme brightness, which often leads to the inability to properly capture and process the full color range, making the image appear washed out. This is very important because if the camera sees a washed out picture with HDR, then that washed out color information will then be passed down to the backlight and the accuracy will suffer. In addition to extreme brightness handling, the HDR triple lenses are much better equipped to identify and interpret black areas on screen so the backlight can adjust accordingly. And this system is tuned to shut the beads off entirely, which I know was a huge ask in the past. So in short, the T2 Pro has a far superior handle on black areas on screen versus the T2 Pro and the T3 Lite. Aside from the modified T3 camera, the backlight itself has also received an overhaul. And I can confidently say that it's without a doubt the best TV backlight that Govee has ever made across all products. First off, the bead density has been increased to 75 beads per meter, which is a 15 beads per meter increase over the T2 Pro and a 45 beads per meter increase over the T3 Lite. Technically, this density mirrors that of the Govee AI2 sync box, but the kicker is that the T2 Pro strip is leveraging RGB-IC-WW 5-way independent light control, versus RGB-IC-W 4-way, which is present on both the AI2 and the T3 Lite. So at the end of the day, this upgrade enables the T2 Pro to deliver up to 30% more brightness, and it's also able to take advantage of Govee's 16-bit color technology, known as Lumen Blend. Now this Lumen Blend tech leverages true cool and warm white undertones, so they can be blended with traditional RGB to create some of the most beautiful salmon, magenta, and natural earthy color tones, which is especially useful for better skin tone accuracy. And trust me when I say the 16-bit represents a significant improvement over the 8-bit limitation, which is found on the T3 Lite 4-way model, and it's leaps and bounds ahead of the T2 Pro, which doesn't feature dedicated cool or warm white beads at all. That said, the T2 Pro has no true lumen rating, while the T3 Lite has a lumen rating of about 120 lumens per meter versus the T2 Pro, which has an incredible lumens rating of 337 lumens per meter. Additionally, the following kit sizes are going to be offered for the T2 Pro, and this unit can also support over 10 individually separately sold Govee Lite products for DreamView versus 7 for the T3 Lite and 5 for the T2 Pro. And of course, we have that support for Google Home, Alexa, and Matter as well. Okay, so very quickly, I want to show you guys what all ships inside of the box for the T2 Pro. At a glance, here's everything laid out. And I love the fact that this is a very straightforward kit. There's not a whole lot of moving parts or pieces, so you could honestly be up and running in less than 20 minutes. First up, we have 2 packs of foam squares used for calibrating the camera. The control box, which has a much more minimalistic design with a single large button on the front that you couldn't miss if you tried. It has an AC port on the left side for the included power adapter, and over on the right side there are 2 USB-C ports. The left port is used to connect the camera to the control box using the detachable included USB-C cable, and the right port is used to connect the light strip itself to the control box. Next, we have the all-new light strip itself, again featuring 75 beads per meter, and if you look close enough, you can see those dedicated cool and warm LEDs that are required for that 5-way independent light control. And finally, we come to the T3 Pro camera itself. And when comparing the T3 Pro camera to the T2 Pro and the T3 Lite, you can see that Govee made a conscious effort to reduce the overall footprint. When the T2 is mounted on top of the TV, it extends roughly 4.5 inches away from the display panel, while the T3 Lite extends a whopping 5.5 inches from the display. Well, the T3 Pro extends just shy of only 3.5 inches. And the camera head of the T3 Pro, despite its triple camera configuration, is incredibly miniature compared to the T2. Just take a look at that boom arm side by side. The T3 Pro is nearly half the size. The widened backside and the new clamp system on the T3 Pro also improves stability of the camera when it's mounted. Okay, so once the backlight and the control box are installed on the back of the TV, just as you would with any other backlight, I'd like to pull up a digital calibration test video to speed up the calibration process. However, the calibration videos that are available on YouTube at the moment do not take into account the new extra calibration step, which is required for the center camera on the T3. So I simply added 2 real foam squares to the bottom of the display to coincide with the orange digital squares that are already present. As indicated in the app for the initial setup, simply drag the appropriate dots to line up with the orange squares on the left side of the screen for the left camera. Rinse and repeat for the right side, and then you'll dial things in for the center camera just as such. Another very important step in the process is to make sure to calibrate the strip correctly by selecting the correct image where the red and the blue sections correspond to what you see when standing in front of the TV. Unfortunately, as it stands now, it doesn't look like Govee included calibration steps for a bottom camera mount setup. But there are ways around that, and if you look back on the channel, you'll find dedicated videos on how to go about it. Okay, once that's all set, the very first thing I recommend doing is pull up a light gray screen on YouTube for the white balance calibration. Once that's up on the screen, you'll hit the calibration button and the camera will produce 2 images, and it wants you to select the image that has either the fewest or no stripes. If you don't see any stripes whatsoever, I recommend selecting option number 1. Save your settings and then select your saturation percentage. I've personally been using between 20 and 50%. Okay, quick disclaimer before we dive deeper into settings and features. I'm going to be focusing heavily on the TV Color Sync tech for this video, but as you can see up above with all of these tabs, there's much more to explore beyond the TV Color Sync technology, such as preset lighting effects, finger sketch features, share space, and so on. And there's even an illumination tab, which is solely dedicated for cool and warm white dedicated beads. Alright, so once you have the white balance all dialed in, it's time to dial in your preferred video settings by leveraging a number of the new features for the T3 Pro that will take your immersive lighting experience to an entirely new level. First things first, this all-new triple camera system provides 4 HDR effect toggles, and you can choose whichever option looks best to you depending on the content. If you tap the question mark beside the HDR effects, you'll get a brief description, which reads, HDR effects supports adjusting HDR light and dark exposure ratio, which enhances the dynamic range of the captured screen and intelligently boosts the brightness of the device to present a more vivid and clear visual effect. This setting is also effective in Dream View. Now, the important thing to note here is that with each selection from left to right, the backlight will become brighter and brighter, which Govee hopes will better align with HDR content specifically. But as that brightness goes up, you may start to notice a slight drop in saturation. You can see that Govee's default recommended setting is number 2, and so far I think that is the sweet spot for most cases. Moreover, right below the main tabs up top, you'll notice that there are 4 unique video mode options. From left to right, we have solid, vivid, smooth, and delicate. Solid, as the name implies, will sync all icy zones to provide a single color across the entire backlight. This mode is present on older models as well, but the recognition algorithm has actually been improved for the T3 Pro. You see, for older models, the solid mode analyzed the screen and simply provided an average of all colors. However, the T3 Pro can more intelligently analyze the screen and match the backlight for the true predominant color on screen, rather than taking that overall average. The next video mode available is Vivid, and this mode is essentially dividing the screen into 10 zones. So the individual color zones on the backlight will cover a wider area, and the saturation will also have a moderate boost. The third and the fourth video modes, which are smooth and delicate, is when the color selection becomes much more granular and precise, which in general will equate to better performance overall. The smooth mode will divide the screen into 24 zones. In delicate, or what I like to call God mode, is when the screen is divided into a ridiculous 32 zones. But each zone is a matter of personal preference, whether you prefer more precision with smaller zones or larger areas of the strip to be more consistent. I personally prefer delicate most of the time, but I will shift over to vivid if I start to feel like I want things to slow down a bit or if I want a little more saturation pop. The next selection at your fingertips is game or movie mode. Game mode makes the light patterns move a bit more acutely, while movie mode has a bit of a slower transition. Movie mode is usually my go-to for both gaming and watching movies and TV shows. The T3 can also utilize black edge elimination for widescreen content when toggled on, and it also has an auto power off feature that will power off the device when detecting a black screen or static image over a customizable preset time. And finally, let's get into the feature that truly impressed me for the T3 Pro, which is the AI film filter. When you toggle this feature on, you'll be able to apply predefined preset filters that are categorized by various sports such as football, basketball, and hockey, or, which is what I've been doing mostly, is manually search and input specific movie titles or general show types. The database seems extremely large for this feature. I've been able to find a ton of content, and the AI will hop into the driver's seat and take off. It will literally disable your pre-configured white balance and saturation settings temporarily, so it can put into action an advanced color mixing algorithm that is continuously learning. Simply put, the AI will adjust the backlight white balance and saturation in real time based off your selection and previous learnings. And after extended use, I've noticed that it can improve accuracy for more complex scenes where the backlight may deviate, show latency, or just struggle in general. And that's a great segue into the head-to-head comparison. Now, for most of these examples, I'm using the delicate mode 32 zone preset with my saturation set to 20%, and the AI filter is temporarily disabled unless otherwise indicated. So for this first RGB color wheel, you'll notice the incredible brightness and coverage delivered by the T3 Pro, as well as the smoothness and color transitions. And for this example, notice how the T3 Pro hangs in there a lot longer than the older camera models when the RGB spiral starts going wild, but it eventually loses its way, just as with the AI2 sync box, honestly. Okay, couples retreat. If you're a longtime follower of the channel, you knew this clip was coming. Now, the T3 Pro held its own for this test, but when I activated the AI filter and locked in the specific movie title, I nearly fell on the floor with how close Govee's new camera-based system is coming to a freaking HDMI sync box. I mean, it's truly incredible what they've done here. They're neck and neck pretty much, and all I can say is that I hope the database that the AI has access to continues to expand quickly. So I already know there's gonna be people down in the comments that are saying, just get a sync box. There's no visible camera, and even though the T3 Pro can give a sync box a run for its money in spurts, a dialed-in sync box would generally always inch it out where accuracy is concerned, especially in brighter environments. But personally, I think there has and always will be a place for an external-based system like the T3 Pro. It is plug and play, and it won't ever interfere with your TV apps or a complex home theater audio setup, for example. And I can't end this video without highlighting that an external-based system is 100% future-proof. The HDMI 2.2 standard has already been unveiled, though not widely adopted. But at some point in time, we will come to a crossroads where sync boxes of this generation will be unable to fully keep up. And when that happens, HDMI sync box enthusiasts, including myself, will eventually find ourselves back out in the wild, scrambling for the next best thing. Look, all I'm trying to convey here is that there is room for both internal and external-based dynamic TV color sync technology. And I honestly don't think that one is unquestionably superior to the other, because they both have their upsides as well as their shortcomings. That said, if you're in the group that wants a future-proof, plug-and-play and less obtrusive solution without making too many sacrifices, then the T3 Pro is without a doubt the product to fit the bill. The RGB-IC WW 5-way technology for the backlight itself is unprecedented in this space. Because correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe that any other TV backlight system is using this 5-way technology. Even fancy LED's RGBW kit is using 4-way. However, the T3 Pro is not all roses and rainbows, and I definitely think that there's room for improvement. The first item I want to call out is the black screen power off setting. Again, when active, the backlight will shut itself off automatically. However, I've noticed that the backlight will sometimes turn itself back on, even when the screen is off, due to glare across the screen from external sources like sunlight. So it would be great to have this feature more fine-tuned to address this behavior. Now, the auto white balance feature is a great way to simplify the setup process, but it would be awesome to also have the ability to manually adjust the color tint, which is a feature available for the Govee 2.1 sync box. This will be a great way to really dial things in for your individual TV calibration settings. I also understand that Govee doesn't actually really recommend installation of the camera at the bottom of the display, because these types of setups does cause the camera to become more susceptible to external light. But if as users we understand the risk and still want to go through with it, it'd be great to have a more simplified calibration process to do so. Outside of this handful of nitpicks, the T3 Pro is a more than worthy successor to both the T2 and the T3 Lite. And honestly, I would love to see a refresh on the sync box utilizing this all-new RGB-IC WW backlight, because Lumen Blend in TV color sync is just a match made in heaven. But you guys make sure to sound off in the comments and let me know what you think about the all-new T3 Pro TV backlight. Are you currently using a camera-based system or some HDMI sync box for your color syncing needs? And if you could change one thing for the T3 Pro, what exactly would that be and why? As always, thanks for watching and supporting the channel, and I will see you guys in the next one.